Really excited to have you guys in here today to talk about web accessibility across the board. I know for Duda customers, and something we hear a lot is there's a lot of kind of anxiety and questions in kind of the web accessibility space right now. There's a lot of uncertainty around requirements and needs. I think there's also a lot of learning that kind of needs to be done as well among the agencies and web professionals and web developers in the world related to building accessible presences across the board. So really excited to have you all here. Why don't we just start with just a quick round of introductions. Christine, if you want to start, it would just be great to hear about who you are and just a little bit of background.
Sure. I am Christine Schackinger. I live in Las Vegas. There are people that live here. I have more digital experience than I probably care to admit, but I started doing front-end design and front-end code and development in 1998 and added accessibility as a skill set around 2004, and I've dipped in and out of it during my career. I also do SEO, which is my primary function now, but from around 2013, I did 3 years as a lead at the USA.gov for accessibility, which is the GSA for the United States. So it's the government portal for the United States. And I've always included it in all my website audits, generally speaking. So that's where my background is. I also taught Chinese province officials WCAG standards in 2011 over in China for a UN effort on taking accessibility around the world with a treaty. So
great. Welcome. We're excited to have you here. Leah, do you want to jump in and give a little background?
Yeah, sure. I'm Leah Scudmore. I'm the SEO lead at AimClear, and I fell in love with accessibility by chance. I had a friend that was diagnosed with ALS, and while she was fighting the disease, I realized how much she was disconnected from her friends and family in the process, and that changed my SEO career. So as much as I've been doing SEO, I try to make sure that from beginning to end, when we're working on content or building websites, that we are focused on accessibility so friends and family aren't left out.
Great. And finally, Kim, why don't you give yourself an introduction?
My name is Kim Krausberg, and I am a certified accessibility specialist my first website was built in 1995, and I guarantee you it wasn't accessible or user-friendly at all. We were animating back then. That was a lot of fun. Yep. Anyway, I was a consultant for over 25 years and have a lot of background in SEO and forums management. And anyway, present day, I now work for Bank Mobile Technologies, and I'm getting more into the mobile app side of accessibility and development and testing. But yeah, it's and as far as why, I have no idea. Accessibility has always been part of my work, and I didn't know it. And then I just became more interested in it and became certified.
And we lost him.
Yeah. I scared him away.
He's back.
I think I hit the stream limit of today. So thank you, Kim, so much. So for our session today, Kim has prepared a presentation, kind of give us an overview of auditing and looking and how you can think about finding accessibility topics. Please, guys, the way it'll work is Kim will have an overview. I think it's about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes of a presentation. And then after, we'll have plenty of time for questions and discussion. So if you guys have questions, please feel free to pop them in the comments or the chat as they come through. We will have time towards after the presentation to answer those and dive deep on those topics with the broader group that we have here. So Kim, with that, do you want to jump in and share your slides and give us an overview?
Yeah, as soon as I figure out how to work it. Yeah. Yes. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. That's not the first slide though. I already jumped ahead. Well, you already know who I am.
Yep.
And where we are and why we're here. So one of my guiding principles, and I didn't even figure this out until actually I started the work, is everything has beauty, but not everyone can see it. And you'll see why I say that. Anyway, the future is digital. And it's growing more and more so. And I'm the daughter of an electronics engineer and a radio guy. And he would be amazed at how the technology is driving what we do. And it's just going faster and faster. So there's a lot of room for opportunities, both for our websites and for mobile app development for inclusion design. And one example is the fintech industry, which is growing by leaps and bounds, and the ability to make payments from, a mobile device. That's just one area. But why is that so cool? Because we take our devices with us wherever we go. And we do more and more things with our mobile apps as well as websites. So they all have to be usable by more and more people. And we're figuring out the gaps and where they're not. I'm pausing here just because I'm only seeing part of the picture, and you guys probably see more of it than I can. Anyway, design for inclusion, I know, don't laugh, is opens doors, and it's a constant. Like the more we learn, the more opportunities there are for developers and user interface designers to create new and better things to include more people. And we are finding that SEO fits in, information architecture, usability, human behavior, all of that is playing a part in inclusive design and just giving us more things to consider and to think about as we create and develop. Paying homage to our friend Bill Slosky, who a lot of people on here may remember. He passed away not too long ago. And Bill was first in SEO, but he was also very involved in the usability and also accessibility. We would spend a lot of time talking about accessibility. And one of the things that he became interested in was automation and AI and assistive tech. And this was just one of his blog posts from April about the automated assistants. And what we're finding is that things that are being developed for people with disabilities help a lot of us. But at the same time, I can't turn on any of the lights in my house. Only my husband can. They're voice activated by him. It's ridiculous. So we're still learning how the technology works and how to create. I'm going to skip. I probably should have given a forewarning. My presentation was longer, so I'm going to skip the ADA legal stuff because I know that my friends here are going to help with it. What to do if you get an ADA, letter, and how creepy, scary all that is. And I also have resources and information to share separately outside of this. I wrote a blog post with resources because people are going to want to know. Web accessibility law and the ADA is changing, and the Department of Justice is rewriting the information to include the web, because in 1990 the word web wasn't part of the ADA. And that's been causing a lot of confusion for people. They will say, well, they can't sue me because it's not against the ADA. And that's just a technicality. We are building for accessibility because it's the right thing to do, plain and simple. You can, go around it and talk about it all you want. We're not doing it because it's the law, and for .govs and some education sites, yes, they do legally have to comply. But for the rest of us, it's just the right thing to do. Considering the risks is also, I was going to jump over this as well, other than to point out that Sherry Haber is a really good resource. She has the legal background. She's also an accessibility person, and she writes things in terms that are easy to understand. And this is just one article that she wrote that was really good, but she writes many. Her and Lainey Feingold are my go-to people when I want to know what's happening in the legal world. Standards and guidelines. This is what we base our designs on and what the testing is based on. And you'll hear us say WCAG or WCAG 2.1, 2.2, whatever. This is what it's based on. The W3C is constantly rewriting and revisiting the standards that web design is based on. And let's see, 2.1 is out now. 2.2 is due hopefully by the end of the year, if not the beginning of next year, haggling over one little area. But it changes because we're using more mobile. So the standards and the recommendations are changing to assist us with mobile design for accessibility. That's all that is. Tap targets, how to work that teeny tiny screen. All of that is in the guidelines. And I want to point out that this information is free. It doesn't cost anything other than your time and to try to read it and figure it out. And there's a lot of resources on how to implement the code. This is another one I was going to jump over because it gets into the whole ADA legal part. Other than to point out that other countries do have more laws than the United States does. So depending on where you're doing business and who your target market is, you need to know what their accessibility guidelines and laws and regulations are. And in the United States, each state has their own. Because I used to work on Pennsylvania's, and they have their own, set of guidelines. So what is the point of web accessibility? Does it cost a lot? That's also a really popular question. And, it depends. The risk is that if you don't do it, it will probably cost you more money. So people do people things. I said that one time in the car to my husband, and he's like, wow, that's really a cool line. You should use that. Because people do people things, and we don't always know how they're doing those people things. Which is why the standards cover the 4 principles: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Robust is going to grow because the assistive technology and devices are, the technology is just driving it. And all of the WCAG standards fall, and the guidelines fall underneath each one of those principles. There's no way you're going to memorize them, but I have test cases and test plans that, of how to implement all of them. It's a lot. This one I was going to skip over, other than to point out requirements gathering is really important. And even if you think you know what your requirements are as you're designing and developing, you're going to have to revisit it because things change. The technology changes, the code changes, or somebody who's using your website or your app runs into a problem, and then you're going to have to change it again. There's requirements that you don't even know that are required. So it's an ongoing process. This I wanted to jump over, except for the part about customer support. It's very important to have an accessibility statement in your footer, along with the privacy and T's and C's, that provide a way for somebody to get help. Because not everybody is going to be able to fill out your form or understand how to use your website, and it's not their fault. It's something that we're doing wrong, and they need to be able to have a way to get help. And so always, always, always provide some way to make contact and let them contact you. And the accessibility statement usually has how to contact us if you get stuck. So that's pretty important. This I'm going to jump over just because it takes up too much time. Okay, here we go. Here's my world. I listen to websites. I listen to code. And this tells me a lot about the user experience, especially with devices. Screen readers for Mac and Apple iPhones use what's called VoiceOver. And as you can see, the settings, there's a lot of settings, and there's a lot of ways that you can tell your device how to help you, which is why overlays we don't want you to use overlays, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to override all those settings that you're seeing there. They take over the site, and you want your person who needs their own personal settings to leave them intact. So this is iOS. And then the next one is Android, and that's in dark mode, because if you can see it, I took those screenshots at 5:30 in the morning and it was still dark. So, but anyway, talkback comes with Android, and it's also free, and that's their accessibility settings. For PC, we test with NVDA, which is a free plugin, or a lot of people use JAWS, which is not free. But it's gaining in popularity, despite the fact that people who need it have to pay for it. When you're doing accessibility testing, they recommend testing with JAWS, but of course you have to pay for it. The trial will run out. The reason why I listen is because I have a better understanding of what the experience is like for people using your websites and your apps. And if I'm not listening, I can at least try to use tools, and tools are great. There's a lot of free ones out there. There's also ones that fee-based. There's automated tools. These are just a couple of my favorites. Lighthouse you're familiar with. Axe and Axe Pro is another one. Wave is great. I love Wave. These tools work with your browser, and I have them as extension on Edge, Firefox, and Chrome so that they're there whenever I want them. And I can right-click Axe, and it will come into my web dev. So if I right-click and I want the source code, Axe Pro is right there with me. And these tools can highlight where the issues are. They can tell you what standard isn't being met, what success criteria isn't being met. A lot of them are really helpful. They don't fix anything, but they will give that first look, and everybody uses them. They don't replace manual testing, but you can jump ahead and find a lot of problems like color contrast and things like that. This is my site right now, which is broken. And the reason why it's broken is because I'm combining 3 sites into one. And I actually thought I was going to put it in Duda, but that would have taken even longer. So in the process of putting 3 sites into one WordPress site, and it's saying that it was accessible, which it's not, I wanted to add my skip to content link on the upper left side, which is, you'll see that, and it's very helpful to be able to click that link and jump over the navigation. I can't do it on my site right now because there isn't any place for that skip link to go. The error that you're seeing here, first of all, there's no main landmark. There's no place for that skip content to go. There's also a duplicate complementary landmark, which means that the sidebar is being labeled complementary and it's labeled twice. So none of that's right. I have to fix it. But that's just an example of an issue that I saw, and I couldn't figure out what was causing the problem. So I right-clicked and did some investigative work. And this is just an example of what you can see. Tools are great. They don't tell you how to fix the problem all the time, but they give you a lot of help. These are some other tools. They're not always plugins, but my favorite one is Joe Dolson, who's an accessibility guy for WordPress. He's had his tool for free for years and years and years. And I use it in combination with Tana Guru. So if I get a flag and it says I have color contrast errors, which every website has color contrast errors, I don't care who you are. And if you want to know how to fix it, you get the hex number and then you pull it into Tana Guru, and it will tell you the better matches. And it will tell you to what criteria and what level those matches work the best. It's a great tool, and it doesn't cost anything. It's free. I love free. Be My Eyes is a company that you can outsource them if you have an app and you have a customer who's having trouble. Be My Eyes will be their eyes. And I'm going to be interviewing a cousin of mine who's a volunteer for that. But it's basically humans helping people through that software. It's there's another company that does it too, but we're not ready to help everybody. But there's companies out there that are able to help. So sometimes you need help to help, and Be My Eyes is one of them. What else was on this list that I wanted to show? I think that was it, because I want to get to the fun part. Okay, common issues. First of all, that's my mother. Before her Alzheimer's took over, she was my cognitive user tester. If she couldn't understand something as she was starting, dementia was setting in, and also just old age, she would tell me about it. She was great. And I have other people, who are older, but the whole point is that it's not just for blind and visual and deaf. It's also for the cognitive, whether it's temporary or permanent. There's a lot of reasons why people cannot use our websites, not just visual. And understanding and reading difficulties and being on the spectrum, and all of that plays a part in the work that we do and why we want to code our digital properties better and better and better, just simply because more people can use them without getting confused. On this list, it's always color contrast is number one. Unannounced offsite links, you wouldn't think that that's a problem, but imagine if all you get is the audio and the screen reader saying, this is a link, double click to activate, and it takes you off the site. No warning, no nothing, you're gone, bye. That happens all the time. It's one of the things that I test for. Forms is another one. Form field labels are missing the label in the backend code. So anytime a form isn't labeled properly, the same thing with modals and iframes and carousels, they need to be coded so that somebody who doesn't have the visual can still use them. And we're always forgetting that, and there is ways to code for that, but these are just the issues that come up all the time. Carousels, there's no slider for a screen reader. It doesn't happen, but you see them all the time. Same thing with animation. So these are just things to consider. Modals, the content inside of a modal is not there unless it's coded properly. That's a lot of text. Sometimes is completely invisible, and lots of times there's a button along with it, and that's not there either. So these are just a list of some of the most common problems that come up all the time. Okay, so now we're going to see some stuff in action. You might recognize some of these, and Duda's going to kill me, but some of these are templates, and I didn't need a tool to be able to tell me that right away. The content over the image, which we see all the time, that's not text. The screen reader is not going to know that that's there. The search engine is not going to know if it's there either. It will need alt text, but secondary to the fact that the content or the text isn't there is most of the time that color contrast, like the text over the image, the contrast isn't working. It's really hard to do. And which is why I try to avoid doing it at all, because it's really hard to get that right. Small fonts is a big one. Do not go below 12 pixels, and try to use responsive fonts like EMs and REMs so that they expand and contract and do everything responsively. 14, 16 are the norm now. Which is kind of interesting. And if you go to some of the websites by accessibility people, their fonts are gigantic. One of the things that I didn't put on here is that one of the criteria is for websites is you must be able to allow people to zoom in 200% without losing the integrity of the page. And a lot of times that viewport metadata says, no, you can't. You can't go, we're restricting it. That's a WCAG failure. They've got to be able to, change the size of the screen and the text. And that's also a fun one to test, especially when the images run off the side. Centered paragraphs, that's hard for people with reading disabilities to read. We say you can center the headings, but if you've got a chunk of content, left justified, left align it. Justification's bad, left alignment is good. Just because it's easier to read, it's easier to scan. We don't read every word anyway, so you want to be able to aid the readability of the page. And duplicate call to action. There's nothing worse than I call it the merry-go-round effect, especially if you're listening. But that's common. You'll see more than one call to action going to exactly the same place, several areas on the page. We have to get away from that. Next one. This was fun. This page is almost entirely images. And if I was to listen to this page, I wouldn't have the slightest idea who the friend is. Visually, you can tell it's a dog, but the logo is the only actual clue. There's no text on here that says your friend is a dog. And search engines aren't going to know either. And one of the tests that I do, I've been doing this for 100 years, is to remove all the images and see what's left and what's in the text. And the search engines get that information, but so do screen readers. And people using screen readers sort through that. They don't read everything. They use what's called a rotor, and that will tell them, okay, this is where the content is. This is where all the links are, and it helps them move around, and they do it really quickly, but they need that text so that they understand. And then I had some other questions that you can read on there, but basically I couldn't tell, even as a visual user, what to do. There's not enough user instructions there. So if it's not there visually, it's not there for somebody who's just listening to the page. So it's just something to take into consideration. And careful writing your content. This one, do some research on ableisms, which is, I'm still kind of getting to know it because the people in the accessibility industry are all over it. For example, the word see. If you're using a screen reader, you don't get the images. You might see the text and it says see something. Well, they can't. So they might be offended by that. So what we try to do is come up with different ways to convey the information without being offensive, or it might sound politically correct, but it matters to people that we're developing and designing for. So I know where I work, we carefully evaluate what we're saying, where we say it, and how we say it, and that's one example. Alt text, you have to have your alt text. Even Twitter's, letting you add alt text to your code, PowerPoint, everything. What was the last one? This one concerned me because even with the visual, I still didn't know where they were. And I wasn't 100% sure because there's not enough content there, text. Is it a local restaurant? Am I looking for a menu? Or can I order from them? These are things that are missing just for basic understanding. Not everything is for, the screen reader. A lot of this is just presenting information so that we understand what it is we're supposed to do. Trust me, I need a lot of help. I'm one of the older people. So this one, I'm not going to go through piece by piece. That 3-column section, though, we see that a lot. And you'll see the 3 columns, and then it will say learn more, read more, click here, whatever that anchor text says, that will come up in a tool as a failure, an error, because it's repetitive. Repetitive links that say exactly the same thing are bad. Not to mention the fact that for conversions reasons, they don't really inspire the click, which, conversions is another part of the thing that I'm specialize in. So you want to be as descriptive as possible, not just for conversions and visually, but for the person that is listening. They need to understand that text. So, and so that they will go and follow that link. Because all the screen reader is going to say is activate, activate, activate. It's like a robot. Give them a reason to go. And then just some other things that I pick up. And again, I didn't use any tools. I don't know, this is just like my visual look, first pass. And a lot of people do this just in design, the design stage. It's like, okay, Kim, what are we missing? And this is what that experience is like. So I gave you a lot to think about. Create PC is my old handle from way back in the 90s, and I'm bringing it back. It means create peace. And in my mind, that's why we're here and why we do what we do. Online anyway. So thank you very much. We try to be helpful. Anyway, so thank you for listening, and over to my friends.
Great. Thank you, Kim. That was an excellent kind of intro and overview of kind of accessibility, and also some really practical tips. I love that you highlight some Duda things that we need to do better. I think this is absolutely No, I think realistically, Duda needs to also really bake this into our templates more and bake it into the platform more. It is something we're really looking at. We have what I would call our improvements Duda's making to the platform of fixing some of the underlying code and HTML that we use, fixing and improving, kind of some of the most blatant issues that are there. A lot of it also is obviously on our customers, how they design and how they build the site and what's going into it. And so we have an ongoing kind of project to find those things that really can't be fixed inside of Duda and then fix those kind of natively inside of the platform. But it's really, really great to highlight. The ones you highlighted actually wouldn't be fixed by what we're doing because most of it's design choices that you're just calling out. Yeah.
Right. And you don't know what you don't know. So,
Absolutely.
A lot of this is just, based on, I've tested hundreds, thousands of websites, and a lot of this stuff I just see over and over again.
It's a lot of times comes back to the themes. Whatever themes we downloaded. Like, I don't understand why platforms are allowing themes that out the gate aren't accessible. Like, I don't know how many times you guys have seen H2s above H1s. Like, how often do you, right? Like, I don't know how often we see that. And it literally every single time comes back to the theme being incorrect. And so holding people submitting themes to a higher standard would be a first step for every platform.
Yep.
I think that part of the issue is that a lot of times outside of people like us who deal with it, they perceive it as a small percentage of the United States or the world market, that it's not really that valuable to them. But 1 in 4 Americans claim a disability of some type that would be affected by this. That's 25% of the US population. And then if you look at the actual statistics on how much money is out there, and let's be frank, people aren't going to do it just because it's the right thing if it's a business. Like, do I really care about the template? Should I get somebody to accessibility audit me, things like that? Because I think it's not a big thing for them. It's not that helpful for them. But market wise, when I did a study in Vegas years ago, but I did it for a big casino for the market for them, it was a $13 billion untapped industry per year in travel, with Vegas being the top 4 destinations for people with accessibility issues. So when I worked at Zappos, they even had a whole line of clothing meant for people with disabilities because they realized the market value. So one, you definitely want to do it because it's the right thing to do. But when we're talking about business, it's also a massive amount of people in the world need their sites to be accessible.
And I've got the whole US numbers if you want to know what the dollars are for the entire US.
That's why I didn't put it in my presentation.
So I did a study
and
found that $490 billion is with people with disabilities. So that's,
and it's just sitting on the table.
It's just sitting on the table, and only 10% of websites globally are accessible. 90% of websites in the US are not accessible. So it's just money like hanging out there. If you're looking at people with independent living difficulty, like my dad's, it's $140 billion, and that grows 14% each year.
Yeah.
So
that's huge. I didn't know it's that big. So that's a good number to know. Yeah.
Yeah. When we did the math, it's like literally, let's see, how did it go? Hold on. I got them on the side over here. It is literally the size of China. The money is literally the size of China. So let me find,
like probably full GDP of the Chinese economy. Yep.
Yes. And when you add the number of people are like, well, that's just they aren't my customers. That's the biggest thing we hear is like, oh, they're not my customers. But if you add the people with disabilities up to the people that are making decisions for people with disabilities, it's 37.5% of the world population are making decisions based on an ability. That's a huge number.
That's huge.
Huge number.
Yeah. The other thing that was really, and I don't know the tool, Kim will probably remember the tool. I don't remember what it was, but we would have to test everything when I was at the government with every device type. And one of them simulated the changes in your eye based on your age. So as people just get older, the ability to discern contrast, colors, things like that dim. And so if you're a market with anybody, over the age of 50 or 60, you could be putting things into your website like not using underlines on links or not using proper color schemes or not using indicators. That would make it very difficult for just somebody who doesn't use any assistive devices and doesn't call themselves disabled in any way to operate your site properly, especially when it's in mobile. I see a site last week that gave me all their links were black text. And I'm like, well, how's anyone supposed to know that's a link? Well, when you roll over it, well, that won't help anybody.
Line by line.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
That's actually a broken success criteria too. We're not, color is not supposed to be an indicator. That's a fail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Oh.
links are supposed to, if it's a text link on your site, it is like mandatory you have an underline.
Yeah.
It just can't be bold. It has to literally have an underline.
With
Yeah,
CSS, not
Yes.
not the U.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. There's the other thing is we run into a lot is, oh, I just want a clean, bright site, just clean, not a lot of lines. But the problem is by not having lines to differentiate, say, buttons for people with cognitive difficulties, like my dad, he doesn't know what to click on. He just sees a list of words. He doesn't understand that it has a function. So white websites with like gray font, first off, gray font, if it's not dark enough gray, isn't accessible to begin with. But then you don't have elements to delineate function, then you take that away from them too.
And let's just talk about like a font in general. So Twitter had changed this font to something called Chirp. And if you look up who designed it, they weren't a font designer. So that's part of the problem. But it caused me a lot of visual issues. And then when I went on Twitter, I have, by the way, a retinal issue. So I see 20/20, but I don't have all the rods and cones everybody has. So for me, digital text can sometimes be jumpy or just cause me difficulties in comprehension because of the way it's written. So I go on the Twitter site and there's tons of people with visual issues complaining to Twitter that this is giving them headaches. It's giving them visual issues. Now, if a regular person looked at it, they're like, I don't see what your problem is. It looks fine to me. And then somebody who does design fonts figured out the way they did the I can't say the word, anti-aliasing, is that the correct way? Around the font was wrong. And so for people with visual issues, that caused a problem. So you want to be careful too, even just you pick your font choices, like stick with system fonts if you can. Also, you don't have to download all that weight for the web fonts. But if you're using a web font, make sure it's an accessible web font because not all web fonts are accessible for people.
That's great. I want to jump in and get a question in from the group here. I think this is one that'll resonate well with Duda customers. From Jared, he asked it a little earlier on. Ultimately, who does the responsibility of accessibility fall on? Is it the business owner, the agency, or the content management system, or all of the above?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a team effort. Yeah, definitely a team effort.
Yeah.
Legally, when I've worked for companies that have received Department of Justice notices, it has been the company that's responsible for getting it fixed. But as far as internally, yes, it's a team effort.
Right.
Yeah.
I've heard of some Duda customers that include this in their agreement, that it's not on them to kind of make sure it's fully accessible, that, the client needs to take this on. I think, good, an agency who's going to be proactive about this is going to be out there and talking about this and building sites that, are following a lot of these success criteria for WCAG. But, there's a wide range of worlds out there that people use.
Yeah, the old disclaimer. I've actually written several of them for small business clients, but they're petrified. So there's the disclaimer, but the accessibility statement too. As long as you have your door open, that alleviates a lot of problems. You don't know you have a problem until somebody tells you you have a problem.
Right.
If you don't leave your door open, then they're going to complain. They're going to take it up many notches. Yeah. But who's responsible? It's an ongoing thing. And I'm finding that most people who find themselves unable to complete a task for any reason, they want to help. They're not out to get you. Yeah. Yes, there are serial filers. That's a whole nother topic. But genuinely, most people, they just want to be able to help because they're representing themselves and people like that.
Yeah. Most of the time when I've been at a company that received those notices, it's because the company didn't react to the complaints.
Right.
So
you have to respond. Always respond. That's like the first thing to do. Don't leave it hanging.
And the first response from the C-suite is to, we got to get our lawyer to write this. And that is not something you can do. It has to be fourth grade English or really easy, simple to read. It cannot be lawyerific. It has to be simple speech. And then InClear site actually has a really good example of what we've done. Like we actually say like, this is what we're working on. And we've updated it here and there as we've fixed things that we didn't know was wrong with our site until I really started digging in. But yeah, it's and there are things on my site that are still broke because I have them broke for examples. Because I'm like, see, this is an example of like Kim was talking about earlier with like how you strip out all the images and see if everything's in the right order. That's one of the things I love to do too. And what I use it to show like there's this bar that's not supposed to be there, but it's smack dab in the middle of all the text. So yeah.
There's a great tool for that, by the way. It's Web Developer tool that goes in Chrome and Firefox, and you can do linearize the page, and it'll show you exactly how the page flows in all device types. So, or I'm sorry, media breakpoints. So, but yeah.
Great.
So.
Cool. I'm going to jump into the next few questions here. Rich Keller was asking, a lot of the designs that Kim was highlighting earlier in her presentation overlap with kind of the text and images and background. Do you have any stats or conversion rates after a site was optimized for accessibility? I feel it can help conversion rate in general.
Yeah.
She would have the stats. Yeah, I'm like, I can't show anybody anything because I'm legally bound not to do it.
I can give you I can give stats. I can't show you anything, but I can give you stats. We have a client that we worked with starting last August, and between August and February working on their site, what the goal was accessibility, because like the main issue on the homepage was it's an e-com site, and you have the product name, you have the picture, and then underneath it you have the dollar amount or to buy now. And every single one of those things was the same, like was a duplicate link, right? Of the exact same link. And so that is not accessible because people listening to the page, they're hearing the product name 4 times in a row before they get to the next product. So that was literally the goal, to fix their e-com so that it didn't do that anymore. And then add alt text, add meta descriptions, and the things that make a website that like literally are foundational SEO. We had an increase in revenue of 20%. Our close rate increased 85% from 62%. And the total revenue increase was 2.3 million in 6 months.
Nice.
So it is, as much as accessibility feels like a really scary thing at its heart and at the beginning of it, it is good SEO and good dev and good UX. So if you marry those 3 together, that's true integration, right? And that's also helps cause revenue to go up because you're serving more people, and it also made it easier for everybody else too.
And to add to that real briefly, when it comes to your visibility and search, doing the things that are required of WCAG A or AA will make your site better just for crawling, indexing. So it's not sometimes people think it's a ranking signal. It's not, but the things that you do to become compliant just make your site better for Google and for users. So it makes it easier. Although just one thing, stop keyword stuffing alt text, please.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe anybody would still do that. But yeah.
Oh my gosh. So many people and so many audits do that. And I want to tell people, just if you are in SEO, Google is very sensitive to keyword stuffing alt text, and it is in their algorithms. If you're doing it all over the site, you can actually get devaluation for it. I've recovered sites purely on that problem. So don't keyword stuff alt text. It's terrible for people with disabilities. So.
I just want to add something real quick as well. Accessibility is finding its way everywhere. I just wrote a chapter for a book on conversions, and when I was invited, I said, I'll do it if I can include the accessibility piece. And they're like, yeah. So Wiley is going to be coming out with a book, can't wait, that on conversions, and there will be the accessibility piece and how that fits in with conversions optimization, which is, it's for marketers. The other one is information architecture is huge, and accessibility is now officially, we're working on with the World or W3C. I was invited to help with that, and because accessibility is part of IA, so it's going to be worked into the standard eventually. So you're not going to be able to ignore it for very long because it's winding its way in everything that we do.
I feel like this is an important point of a lot of what WCAG recommends and talks about is really just writing clearly, writing for a broad audience, writing in a way or designing in a way that can be leveraged and understood by many people. You don't necessarily have to have a disability to be to benefit from what's going into this.
Right.
One thing that we talked about in our pre-session was the relation just to Core Web Vitals, right? Core Web Vitals looks at the experience of a website and tries to grade that. And a lot of what WCAG looks at is just grading the experience of a site.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe there's a question.
Yeah, I was waiting for a question.
No, comments, add something. Yeah.
Well, it's true. And like I was saying just previously, that what you do for a CAG, A and AA standards really does make your site just better. Like CLS, like cumulative layout shift. If you're handling your images properly, your fonts properly, the way they load into the page, those are all covered in those standards. So if you're following those standards, you're not going to have those problems. JavaScript, using JavaScript to make portions of your page, load in portions of your page. Well, Google can't see that most of the time, so neither can someone with a disability. That's covered in the WCAG standard. So if you're following these standards, they're actually, if you were to roll them into your development group, like if you were to say, hey, development, we're going to have an accessibility lead here, and we're going to make sure that you develop to these standards. When your site rolled out, and I've done a lot of development work, when your site rolled out, it would be so good that you wouldn't run into like SEO issues, conversion issues, usability issues. It doesn't mean it'd be perfect, but by following those standards, you'd be coming out with just a top line product and not like a WordPress theme out of the box that has now CRO issues, usability issues, accessibility issues, SEO issues, right? So you solve a lot of that by using the standards and following the standards and rolling them into your dev plan.
And I also want to point out that for mobile development, like native apps, WCAG was originally created for the web. So I've been having a lot of fun applying that to native application development, because it's a completely different code, but those native apps have to be accessible too. So that's a challenge for developers to consider.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. I'm going to take another question. Oh, go ahead, Christine.
Oh, no, just a quick, larger companies could benefit, much like in the early days of SEO, where SEO is just like tacked on at the end and someone does it at the whatever level.
Yeah.
Larger companies could really benefit by having an accessibility lead, even if they don't have a whole team that makes sure that the site is going out according to those standards. Because if they worked with the SEO group, the CRO group, the usability group, which large companies all have, it would allow them to put out an excellent product that, as Leah said, was what, $487 billion worth in the world or something?
Yeah, and it's 2 billion people. They used to say 1 billion people in the world have a disability, but or people, they're 2 billion now. They updated the numbers. It's 2 billion just because of people aging, and there's been war, and there's been lots and lots of changes after COVID. Things like that have changed a lot of people. So it is now 2 billion people worldwide have a disability. So, and that is the size of China. Wow. That's where it was. I found it.
Yay!
I had to find it.
I guess my points are just, it's a very practical thing for a company to roll in to their plan, like they do SEO now, and not like they did SEO years ago, which they still do now, is tack on accessibility at the end. And retrofitting code is always way more expensive and painful than building it right from the first part, the first get.
And if you are a big brand, and you can piggyback on what Christine said, I would bring people with disabilities to the planning table.
Oh, yeah.
At the beginning, before you write that first line of code, the plan should have people with various abilities at the table to help you plan for their future, to like ensure, because there is no retrofitting websites, as the three of us have actually learned.
Right.
It gets scrapped and thrown away, and that's expensive.
Right. You have to build a new site in tandem and launch it, is usually what happens. Yeah.
And that's what happened with that client from August. It was literally, we ended up dumping the whole thing and starting over. So, and it was a brand new build that had just been completed.
Yeah, you really have to do user testing with real people.
Yeah.
And broaden your scope as far as who those people are, which is why I loved using my mom. You know, it's like, where else was I going to find somebody who you know, with dementia? There she was, and she was huge, big help.
Yep.
I used to have the mom test too for anything. I was a designer for years, UI UX. So I always had the mom test. My mom didn't have dementia, but she ran a store on eBay, Amazon, and something else. And she still, when I said go to the address bar, she's like, "What?" So
Yeah, yeah.
she didn't know the names for anything. She just knew how to use what she knew how to use. So if I put a design in front of her and she didn't know how to use it, I knew I had to revamp it. So.
Which made me think of what happens when the design changes, something that you use all the time, and suddenly they change the design and the layout. That is really confusing for a lot of people. We learn one way, and you throw that up. Facebook does that to us all the time. But that's also something to consider. You know, do it slowly, not one big massive shock.
Yeah, I'm known for being the one who complains when they change things on Twitter. But because I designed UIX and front ends for years, and back when we started doing websites in the early aughts, you know, you didn't change all the functionality at once. You didn't get rid of functionality. You might add functionality and slowly phase it out. But now websites often just go, oh, we just shifted the whole thing.
Yeah.
Facebook, run, you know, go fast, break things. And you're right, for even just a regular user, that's a difficult change,
Right.
let alone
Yeah,
someone with a disability. Yeah.
Right.
Great.
I
I'm gonna
suggest,
jump in-
I always do that too. I'm sorry, Russ. I was going to say, I suggest everybody just one time check out their website with just a screen reader and see how difficult your website could be. And I had to do things like speak to navigate, use blowers to navigate, and that just gets incredibly more complicated. But if you just do the screen reader and listen to your site, you might be really shocked and offended at yourself that like
Which okay, and another example is somebody in a wheelchair using they have a cradle, and lots of times they don't use portrait mode. They need landscape.
Yes.
And oh my God, how many websites and digital apps don't flip?
Yep. Instantly inaccessible. If you don't go
Instant.
horizontal, instantly inaccessible.
Yeah.
And there's hold on, I got more stats for you because I did a study on that too. For Facebook alone, there are 873 keywords that have the word Facebook plus horizontal. And it's literally people asking for their app to be able to turn horizontal so that they can read it or get larger fonts and be able to see it better for them. If you add in like Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, it's 1,500 words every 30 days that are typed in with a total number of search volume of 148,930 searches a month. So 150,000 people essentially every 30 days are trying to figure out how to get their favorite apps to go horizontal because either they have a temporary disability where they're like not able to hold their phone because they broke their arms and they have it on a like a pedestal or on an arm in front of them, or they've aged and they've had to switch to a tablet and because their eyesight's going like mine and they need the bigger font, but they can't get it to rotate horizontally, and all of those things hold them horizontally. So
does your car. Lots of cars.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yep. So that
drives me crazy in Facebook when you can't make the image go like that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Russ. Ask us questions.
No, my fault.
Yeah, I'm going to get to the audience here. They have a bunch of questions. Kyle was asking, when a business is served by a law firm, even after having an accessibility statement and trying to accommodate on their website to a reasonable degree, what options does the business have? Do you guys have any recommendations? And I know you guys are not lawyers, so you can't give official advice here. Yeah.
The accessibility statement is not legally binding in any way, shape, or form. I think some people think so. They need to respond. They need to find out where the problems are and, okay, did that person actually test? Because there's serial filers out there who run it through a tool or they didn't actually use it. So I'm starting to tell people who contact me, hey, did they really test it?
Right.
And what was their experience like? But it's important to respond right away. And if it's a real legitimate complaint, you can either negotiate with them or it's time to get a lawyer. and mediate. Most people are able to settle without ever going to court.
Right.
And there's a lot of ways to do it. You know, communication is a beautiful thing.
It is. And also in like Department of Justice letters, now I don't know recently, you know, under the last 2 administrations, but the ones I worked with that did, they really just wanted them to try to fix it. And usually it's just like one item on the site that they identified. And so I remember doing that for one company I was working for. We fixed the item, sent it back to DOJ, and they're like, great, fine, you're good. And there's no fine or anything involved. They're not coming after you unless one, you're usually a pretty big company, and two, unless you refuse to fix it and don't communicate and don't, you know, acknowledge there's an issue and you're trying to make it better.
Yeah.
It's more expensive to fight it, like Domino's did. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous
Target
with
too.
it. I mean, they took it all. Yeah. Well, Target, but Domino's took it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court was like, what? No, we're not
Well, they
even
went out to
gonna.
lunch. They didn't even hear the case.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, come on. But there's certain industries, like the travel industry is one. I think banking too. There's some that are starting to see an uptick in the amount of legal, you know, letters that they're receiving.
Yeah.
So
There's a few of these questions in the group here. Do you guys have examples of sites that are accessible or meet most of the standards that are there that either you guys have worked on or you just know from the industry that people can look at?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say Lainey Feingold, the accessibility lawyer. She, yeah.
And then the UK's Unilever
Yeah.
site. So Unilever is their number one brand in the UK. The UK version of their website, that team is always working on it, and they're a good one to look at.
BBC, they're on
BBC
it
is
as
good
well.
too.
Yeah.
And the
If
federal
you want
government.
what not to look at or what not to do, look at Coca-Cola or ABC News. Those are like the best ones that are like the worst case scenarios.
Well, and by law, the federal government or your local government have to be accessible. It doesn't mean that they are, but those are good places to look for examples.
Yeah.
And then there's a site called, I'm going to use it just because it's easy to remember, and there's WebAIM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
WebAIM will,
Yeah.
and they'll give you all the examples of everything and how to use it and help you address questions you might have, like how do you write alt text? Because it's actually not very simple. It's a very complicated thing that even accessibility people debate today. But WebAIM is a really good resource for checking out how accessibility works.
Yeah, thank you for bringing them up. It's a good resource.
You're welcome.
So we have a few minutes left. I'd love to just use this for each one of you to just give, you know, either guidance or recommendation or a takeaway of someone who is building websites for their clients of something they can, you know, kind of know and kind of take away from the session. Leah, let's start with you if you have something.
So first thing, if I was brand new, it was my first time getting started with this on my website, go write your accessibility statement. It should be everywhere the terms and conditions are, or everywhere, like wherever you see that, that's where you need to be able to see the accessibility statement. It should be called accessibility statement because that's what people are going to look for. And then you want to make sure that it is like in the footer and things like that too, and make sure it's in the sitemap. You need to make sure it's everywhere so that it's super easy for people to find. I hope that answered the question I saw go by about that.
Yeah. Christine, you want to go next?
Sure. I would say for learning purposes, WebAIM, go there. It'll teach you a lot about how to do accessibility, answer questions for you. And I think it's webaim.org. Not 100%, pretty positive. So just webaim.org. And then the other thing I would say, if you're a small business and you're like, well, I need an audit, I don't know how to do that. I want to check my stuff. One, try to find somebody who does accessibility. But if you want to take a look yourself, and there's no skin in my game for this. It's just a tool that I use for small businesses. There's one called Pope Tech, and you can pay a very small amount, and they have one of the most expensive tools you'll have access to, which is called Wave. And so, they will do an audit for you. You can click page by page and it'll show you. Now, this is not a full audit. You need hands-on, you need somebody who knows accessibility, but it can give you an idea of how many errors you have. It gives you a page by page list. When you bring it up in the browser, it identifies every issue by the accessibility standard. So, and you can do, 100 pages for $100 or $200. And the Wave tool is like, if you go to big audit sites, these are thousands and thousands of dollars a month. So the Pope Tech, it's just two brothers who run this accessibility testing tool, but it does allow you to get an idea of the state of your site. Also be aware when you do find an accessibility issue, it can say like 10,000 times this is an issue. It also could just mean that it's one piece of CSS across your entire site. So don't freak out if you use the tool and you find all those issues. But it is good, just like an SEO audit. You should probably get an accessibility audit once a year if you're a small business. Probably more than that if you don't have an accessibility team member and you're a large business, because you're changing your site all the time. If you never change your site, just do it once every 2-3 years. But there are a lot of lawyers out there treating this like ambulance chasing. And so if you are in industries like travel and banking, things that are supposed to be accessible to all people, they're kind of in this weird gray area. You want to make sure that you're getting that checked. So
great.
Yeah.
And Kim.
Okay, even though my site's broken, like I made a blog post and it has a whole bunch of resources, people, companies, whatever. People are welcome to go there as long as they don't say anything about the fact that my site's broken right now. And say, oh my gosh, what is her problem? You try moving 3 websites into one and see. But anyway, to the left of the logo on the Creative Vision Web Consulting is a side menu that drops down. The very first blog post, and I did it today. I did it in a hurry, but the links are there. Great. So it's the resources, some of them because there's no way anybody's going to write all that stuff down. So I threw that up there.
That's great. Thank you.
And I think I had one to, if I could, and manually test your website with a keyboard. Use that tab key. That's going to give you a lot of information. If it doesn't go where you want it to go, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a good tip. Absolutely. Great. Kim, Leah, Christine, thank you so much for joining us today and giving some great insights and great information here about accessibility. Really appreciate you all coming on and sharing your knowledge.